Hi, this is Rich Kamerman, and you're listening to the 1000 Second Album Podcast. The song I want you to hear or rehear is Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin.
Hi, I'm Jeff Stephen, and you're listening to the 1000 Second Album Podcast. This season, we'll be talking about must-hear songs as I continue to ask people that are important to me all about the music that's important to them. Enjoy! Please welcome Rich Kamerman.
Thank you, Jeff. And you're a fine gentleman as well. So it's been a while. We keep in touch through Facebook and through our blogs, but it's nice to see you and hear your voice.
Yes, and likewise, of course. And the song of choice today is Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. And can you start off by telling me a bit about your introduction to Led Zeppelin?
Okay, Led Zeppelin. I got into them when I was 12 or 13 years old in 1979. Do the math, you could figure out how old I am. I went from listening to Kiss nonstop to I went from Kiss to Pink Floyd in 1977, and then that was pretty much what I was listening to, as well as FM radio. And I think it was 1978 or 79 when I finally said I got to dive into the Zeppelin catalog, and it just changed my life in a positive way. They have been my favorite band the entire time. So you're talking 45 years.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and I love that trajectory too of the Kiss goes to Floyd, goes to Zeppelin, and then staying steady there for the next 4.5 decades too, which is good.
Yeah, and I'll just backtrack 1 second. I got into Pink Floyd because I received a Kiss album for my 11th birthday, and it was a Kiss album I already owned. So I went to the store and I said, I've heard about these two bands, Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin. I want to get one of those instead. And they had a whole bunch of Zeppelin albums and only one Pink Floyd album. So I just chose the Pink Floyd album. That was Animals. And it took me another year or two before I finally got into Zeppelin. And actually they're probably number one and two. And they're still both of those bands. But Zeppelin has been my number one. And yeah, Stairway to Heaven has been an important song for me ever since.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because I had a similar age of discovery of the group, but a different medium rather than the birthday gift. It was a trip to the movies with my dad and my sister. In 1992, I would have been somewhere in the ballpark of 11 years old as well. And the movie of choice was the immortal Wayne's World. And
Oh yeah.
Zeppelin gets referenced a couple of times in the movie. There's the great scene where Wayne and Garth are playing street hockey, and Wayne says, I mean, Led Zeppelin didn't write tunes that everyone liked. They left that up to the Bee Gees.
I
Which
remember.
struck a chord with me, of course. And then there's of course, the scene in the guitar shop where Wayne picks up the guitar and plays a couple notes, and the shopkeep points to the sign saying, "No stairway,
No
denied."
Stairway. And what was ironic is, of course, they couldn't use Stairway. They didn't get the clearance. And so he wasn't actually playing Stairway to Heaven on the guitar. So some of us were like, what? What's that all about? But it was still really funny. And I think that still goes in a lot of guitar shops. No Stairway.
Nice. So I guess despite the song being the sort of the bane of the guitar store employee's existence, what is it that appeals to you about Stairway to Heaven, the song?
I think it's possibly the most perfectly constructed song and recording. So it was written beautifully, and the arrangement that the band did was incredible. And I just want to point out, the people are probably saying, I know Stairway to Heaven. I'm sick of Stairway to Heaven. It's so overplayed. And you know what? I think it was for a long time on FM radio, the most played song. It was always number one on year-end countdowns, and I had no problem with that. But people, certainly in my age group and possibly in your age group, were like, "Oh, it's so overplayed. I am sick of hearing it." And I get it. Okay, but you probably haven't played it for the last 20 years because it was overplayed. So the reason I brought it up is I want people to give it a listen with fresh ears. So the lyrics, they're a little bit hippy dippy. I think even Robert Plant is embarrassed by them. He will rarely sing it. He recently did it for a charity event. So it was the one time he played it since the Zeppelin reunion in 2007. So he's a little It's not among his favorite Zeppelin songs, but Jimmy Page is very still very proud of it. And I think the song itself, the way it builds, the way each verse just it might sound the same, but there's something else added to it. There's the finger picked guitar, there's the strum guitar, there is John Paul Jones, I believe, is playing a bass recorder, which live he would use a synth or a keyboard. And then you've got the build up where there's no drums until I haven't looked. It's probably about 4.5 minutes into the song. And the way it's acoustic, it's folky, it's a little hippie, and then it goes into this heavy rock stuff. So it's a true rock song. John Bonham, who's my all-time drumming hero, did an incredible job. It's not this lumbering heavy rock thing. He swings. He's got this incredible feel. The guitar solo is still regarded as one of the all-time great recorded guitar solos, which in some ways he actually improved on in the live setting. But it's close to a perfect guitar solo, and how it builds to the crescendo, and to be a rock and not to roll, and then it kind of comes down a little bit, almost like you've climbed to the top of the stairwell, and I don't know, I guess you're taking a little rest. There's a couch there and an ottoman, you put your feet up, and then Robert Plant just quietly sings, and she's buying a stairway to heaven. So I don't think there's ever been a more epic song that was structured so beautifully.
Yeah. And I'd agree that Jimmy Page has many reasons to be proud of it as well, to not distance himself from the song. Because yeah, for all those reasons and more, absolutely. And the solo you mentioned as well, the I find I really gravitate to guitarists that rather than the sort of lead features being look what I can do, there's a real sing-along nature to it. And I think most guitar enthusiasts would really like that song because you can sing along with the solo too. It's so like
Yes.
it's technically impressive, but also the melodic nature of it is just stunning.
I was just doing that the other day. I was singing along to it, and then
Yeah.
yesterday I was playing the live version from "The Song Remains the Same." That was the 1976 film of the 1973 performance at Madison Square Garden, and the his guitar solo in that is just incredible. And I was singing along to that. He does what's on the record, and then they go into this other sort of feel before they kick back into what you expect to hear, which was always great about Zeppelin. They never played the songs exactly like they were on the record.
Ironically, the song didn't remain the same then, I guess, with the with the live recordings,
Well,
but I think
well played, Jeff.
I
Nicely
have
done.
moments. But it's and the thing I really like about it too is that as you and I are both huge believers in the album format, and I think this might be as close to Exhibit A as possible of why the side one two format is essential, where this closes side one of the four
Correct.
like I guess it's the fourth Led Zeppelin album, but not necessarily Led Zeppelin 4 is the
I
idea.
call it Led Zeppelin 4. Some people call it Four Symbols, Zoso, even though I think that was Jimmy Page's symbol. They each had different symbols. I just call it Zeppelin 4.
Yeah. Nice. And then side two closing with when the levee breaks. And so it's just
Yes.
there's just perfection on the side closers there. I think if I had to pick a favorite Zeppelin tune, I'd probably say When the Levee Breaks. But I think you're onto something though, where this one would qualify as the must hear. And so what I'd ask you next then would be if of all the great songs in their catalog, of all the great songs in whether it's for Young Rich Kiss or Pink Floyd or whomever
Mhm.
else it might be, what is it about Stairway to Heaven that makes it the must-hear selection?
It's what I said earlier. It's the arrangement, it's everybody's performance. Robert Plant's voice was still in peak form, and pretty soon after this, I think through 1972, his voice was incredible. And then I think a combination of oversinging and not taking care of his voice and smoking, it was never quite the same. He didn't have that effortless range. So I think it's his voice on that's incredible. It's Page's guitar work. It's Bonham's perfect fills, perfect swing, and John Paul Jones just holds it down. There's not a particular impressive thing. I mean, John Paul Jones might be the best overall musician in that band, but on this song, he's just there to support. He's got that recorder, and then he's just anchoring the rhythm. So to me, it's everything about it. And when I was younger, it had a lot to do with the lyrics. They were very mysterious. And then when John Bonham died in 1980, and I was heartbroken, for years and years, my tribute every year, I would make sure on the anniversary of his passing, I would play Stairway to Heaven, which seems a little silly now, but when you're in your teens and your 20s, it was a very important thing for me. And that's why I don't listen to it all the time. I played it again earlier this week, probably for the first time in, I don't know, a year, 2 years. And like, I still love this song. And again, it might not be my favorite Zeppelin song anymore. It's hard for me to pick favorites, but then again, it might be.
And it's the kind too where you wouldn't necessarily be able to listen to it every day because I think the running time's something like 8 minutes, and so
Yes,
it
just
is a
about.
commitment of time as well. And I think it was also the back at school dances back in the day. It was where students had that early lesson in the most important thing in real estate is location, 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 where you knew where you had to be, right before the last dance, because this was chances are Stairway would
Yes.
be the last dance. So make sure you're in the prime location to choose your dance partner wisely, because again, 8 minutes are about to go by.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the FM radio DJs, this was among the many long songs that they loved. And that's one of the reasons why, at least at the time when I was a teenager, FM radio played the live version, which is something like 10 or 11 minutes. And I think it was also because the DJs would probably go get stoned or do whatever they would do, and they love those long songs, Inagata Devita and the End by the Doors, and of course you've got the live version of Stairway to Heaven, which became as essential to us, the live version, as the studio version. And as I mentioned to you in our email conversation, I always found this interesting because Robert Plant, I don't even think he knows what the song is about. I think he was, I think, 24 when he wrote this. So, and here he is, he's in his 70s now, so he can't relate to it. But on the live version on the album of The Song Remains the Same, it begins where he introduces it as this is a song of hope. So for a long time, I thought, okay, well, that's very uplifting. Then a few years later, I saw it. I think it was on my 14th birthday or 15th birthday. I got to see Song Remains the Same at a midnight showing, and he introduced it. It was the same take, but they had cut it off on the album. He said, I think this is a song of hope. So even Robert Plant at that time didn't know what this thing was about. He just knew it was about a feeling. It was about being uplifting, and I think he captured it perfectly. But I could understand why he doesn't have that connection to it anymore.
And the lyric, it's funny you mentioned he doesn't really find these lyrics among his favorite lyrics from their catalog. But there's one line in it that I think does really resonate here, though, where there's the lyric, "Sometimes all of our thoughts are misgiven," and the idea
Yes.
of like maybe like if you said he's not even totally sure, maybe we're all sort of wrong in whatever impression we had about Stairway, like that it was overplayed and therefore not worthy of future attention. Maybe just maybe our thoughts are misgiven as well.
Ah, nicely played. That could be it. That's really good. I forgot the other thing I wanted to that we talked about in our email was how new generations would hear this song. Yeah, for my generation, a lot of people are sick of it. I'm not, but I'm sure there are still a lot of fans that love it. But you've got this new generation of rock and roll fans, and okay, if they've never heard it, they're just discovering Zeppelin for the first time. Would you tell them, "Oh, you don't want to hear Stairway, it's overplayed"? Does overplayed make sense to someone who's never heard it? And so I wanted to get your opinion because there are a lot of songs that people consider overplayed. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody. Bohemian Rhapsody is a song that I know a lot of people that are just completely sick of it, especially since the movie came out. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it's an incredible song and an incredible recording. Piano Man. I heard a version of Piano Man yesterday. People feel like they never need to hear it again, but if you've never heard Billy Joel before, you should hear Piano Man.
Yeah.
That's a pretty important song. So, what are your thoughts? Are there songs that were overplayed in your youth that maybe you feel like, oh, I should go back. Maybe I will appreciate it more now?
Probably, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned Bohemian Rhapsody too, because when you suggested Stairway to Heaven, I jumped right to. I remember having a friend in university that it was maybe within a week of meeting each other. Again, you inevitably talk about music as as one of the first conversations, and he was saying it just drove him crazy that when people thought Led Zeppelin, all they thought was Stairway to Heaven. When people thought Queen, all they thought was Bohemian Rhapsody, and they thought that one song was the entire identity of the band. And so I picture that sort of frustration of a friend with one song being identified as the band's sound. But at the same time, Bohemian Rhapsody, I would say, has this similar construction to this where it's it's showcasing what everyone can do really nicely. It has that gentle ending in Bohemian Rhapsody of the anywhere the wind blows, and much like
Yeah.
Robert has the like, and she's buying a stairway. It just ties it all up so neatly at the end. I think for mine that I would have grown up with being that would fall into the people complaining of overplay would probably be something like Smells Like Teen Spirit, where
Yeah.
it was inescapable for a while. I might have needed a break for it in the mid to late 90s, but then I remember when they released that previously unreleased song, You Know You're Right, in like the early 2000s. And I was like, oh, yes,
I
this is
remember.
fantastic. What am I doing taking a break from Nirvana? It's great stuff. And so
Yeah.
so I could see that happening. But you're right that if somebody's never heard it, then the overplayed argument doesn't make a great deal of sense because they haven't lived that experience of the last 50 odd years of it being played. So, yeah.
Exactly. And another thing that I had mentioned in my email to you about this, and I recommend to anybody listening, go onto YouTube and check out the performance of this from last year by, I think it's the St. Andrew's College in New Zealand. And they have, I guess, an annual performance at some kind of fundraiser. And they closed the show. This is with college students. They closed the show with a version of Stairway to Heaven where the young guitarist replicated the guitar solo and they got the crowd to its feet. I think they had a standing ovation at the end. So it was cool to see not just a new generation embracing the song, but playing it well. And then I mean, perhaps the audience were people in your age group, my
Yeah.
age, I mean, in the 40s and 50s, and they loved it.
Yeah.
So if you hear it performed, you're not going to say, "Oh God, I'm so sick of this song." Hopefully you'll hear it and say, this is a fantastic song and this was an incredible performance. So well worth checking out.
Yeah, and I'll second that as well. The um and just how the stage kept going. Like they started with the spotlight on the one fellow playing the acoustic, and then
Yeah.
eventually a choir appeared, and it was just like yeah, just really, really well done. And I couldn't picture that being anything but the finale. Like, how do you follow
Yes.
that up? And so that's good.
Yeah, in the same way that Stairway was the final song on side one
Yeah.
of Zeppelin 4, because could you imagine the song ends and then
Yeah.
just immediately
Yeah.
another song comes on? No, you need to take a break. You need to
Yeah.
flip the record
Yeah.
over. And that's why the CD was never the same,
Yeah.
because I feel like there should be about a 10-second
Yes.
break to just allow yourself to
Yeah.
just take a deep breath, exhale, and then
Yeah.
get ready for the rest.
For sure. And I think that that's what makes this a great must hear too, where I can't remember what the product was, but I remember it was like a breakfast cereal or something. The marketing tagline was try it again for the first time. And I
Yeah, I
think
like that.
and I think this is one of those songs that really should be for those of us who have heard it before once or twice, to revisit it again with a different angle. And it's funny, like just as I went on the line to to connect with you today, the picture that popped up in my on Facebook, the first thing in the sort of the feed was somebody like a Seinfeld fan group saying, "I would give anything in the world to watch Seinfeld for the first time again." And I think that would be so neat to sort of live vicariously through somebody else actually hearing this for the first time, where just they weren't familiar with Led Zeppelin, they weren't familiar with the tune, and then all of a sudden you get to experience this as a brand new thing would be pretty wonderful to
And
to
it's
have that.
probably out there. I know on YouTube they have all of those reaction videos where
Yes.
people hearing things for the first time. I've never watched them because it just all the previews have people with these gasps, the look on their face, and their eyes are bulged out like they can't believe what they're hearing. And I feel like a lot of them are probably just they're trying to get clicks,
Yes.
and so they're overdoing it. But maybe I need to be more open to it, and I'm going to look that up. Maybe there is a video of somebody hearing Stairway for the first time, and I'll be very encouraged if they love it.
Yeah.
I mean, how
That's
could they not?
exactly,
How-
exactly. And I think it was Chuck Klosterman had said in one of his books that inevitably at some point every male will have Led Zeppelin as their favorite band. And so it is sort of
yeah,
it might just be one of those inevitable things that we'll all eventually come to appreciate Stairway as
and
well.
and some of us don't grow out of that. Some of
No.
us keep them as our favorite band. I do have other favorite bands,
Yeah.
but they've been number one and they remain there.
Yeah. Well, no, and I think you were fortunate to lock into some pretty reliable groups early on, and so
Yes,
when you choose, what's the Indiana Jones, the choose wisely, and you chose
yes.
wisely here.
I did. Well,
So,
it was very easy. I mean, fortunately, whatever is considered classic rock now was just rock. And everything, just about everything that was played on the radio when I was a teenager was is now legendary. And it was great timing. So
yeah.
I'm happy to be the age that I am and still have my hearing.
Yes. No, absolutely. Well, a huge thank you for coming today, Rich, and until the next time.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, thanks again. Have a great day.
Cheers. This has been the 1000 Second Album Podcast. Thanks for sharing some of your time, energy, and attention with us today. Take care.